have, and the president and I laughed about it in the Oval last week. I told him, you know, Mr. President, I don't have any tattoos, but if I did, it'd say Save America on my shoulder, okay? We passed it 3 times in the House already. We're going to pass it again, and this time we're going to try to put it on a reconciliation bill, and the reason that's so important, Maria, as you know, is it prevents the necessity of 60 votes in the Senate. The Democrats want no part of this. And remember, this is very basic stuff. We're just going to make sure you have to have proof of citizenship to register to vote, and then show an ID when you turn out at the ballot box. These are 90-10 public opinion issues, and more than 70% of Democrats want to do it, but not the Democrats in the House and Senate. And so we've got to go around them. And I told Anna Paulina Luna and a couple other colleagues, I said, it makes no sense for us to shut down our good work in the House just because Senate Democrats refuse to do the people's will. We've got a lot more to do. We've got to keep it.
What's up, family? So I need y'all to sit down for this one because I genuinely had to check my calendar when I saw this story. John Thune, the Senate Majority Leader, the guy who is technically the highest ranking Republican in the United States Senate, a rhino, as a lot of us will call him, woke up and decided that his biggest enemy was not Chuck Schumer, not the Democrats, not the deep state, not the border crisis, not the inflation that's still crushing working families. No, he woke up and picked a fight with Karoline Leavitt, a mom, the White House press secretary who will be stepping down at the end of this month of August, a woman who literally just got done having a baby, have 2 kids under 2 years old, and went right back to work serving this country. That is who John Thune decided was the problem. Now, let's be real for a second. This is a bold strategy. I mean, it's an absolutely terrible one, but it is bold. He wasn't fighting the left. He was fighting his own damn team. Apparently, the man did not realize they were all wearing the same jerseys. So you got a Republican leader attacking a Republican press secretary while the SAVE Act, the bill that Republicans campaigned on, the bill that the American people voted for, sits on his desk gathering dust like a gym membership that nobody has used since 2019. And this is where the question becomes really simple. Why? Why would the Senate Majority Leader, a man who controls what does and does not come to the floor, choose to attack a woman who is just doing her job instead of doing his own job? That's the question. And I promise you the answer is ugly. Now we're going to break all of this down. We're going to look at the different perspectives, pull every single receipt, and then I'm going to give you my honest take. So hit the like button, share this video, subscribe to the channel, turn on your post notifications, because this one gets messy fast.
Reagan. One question for you on Thune and then one on Darlene Graham. The president seemed yesterday frustrated with Leader Thune when he was speaking in Georgia. Is his patience running out with Leader Thune? And then the president recently endorsed Darlene Graham right after her appointment to Senate. What caused him to endorse her so quickly?
The president met with Darlene and thought she will be a great representative for the great people of South Carolina and will carry on her brother's legacy of public service in that beautiful state. So the president is fully supportive of Darlene in her honorable decision to run and, again, to continue her brother's legacy. With respect to your first question on, remind me?
And his patience is running out.
Look, the president spoke about this directly yesterday. His patience is running out. He wants to see as much of the Save America passed as possible by the August recess. He knows that's what the American people want to see passed. He was just traveling on the road yesterday, spoke about this, and there was a very loud applause from the people in the audience, the everyday Americans, because voter ID is common sense. They want proof of citizenship in our elections, and the president feels very strongly about that. And I would just add, you know, the American people elected overwhelmingly Republicans to lead not just this White House, but also the House and the Senate. The House did its job. The Senate needs to do its job too.
Now, let's set the scene so you understand exactly how ridiculous this is. President Trump has been saying for weeks, let alone months, that he wants the SAVE Act passed before the August recess. Now, for anybody who doesn't know, the SAVE Act is simple. It requires proof of citizenship to register to vote and voter ID when you show up at the ballot box. Now, I know recently the Supreme Court has sided with our president in regards of the restrictions when it comes to mail-in ballots for states that don't want to hand over their voter rolls. I actually agree with that, and I actually have to give a round of applause for the Supreme Court actually upholding election integrity in a way in which John Thune, who happens to be the Senate Majority, The rhino, somebody's behind him controlling the puppet strings as he played both sides of the table. Being a rhino, being in the Senate for so long, obviously he's playing, trying to satisfy the Democrats and Republicans. But it seems as though rhino Democrats, his constituents who came up with him in the Senate, somebody has to be stopping him from the other side of the aisle. But I got to give the Supreme Court this round of applause. All right. Now, getting back to what I was saying, just vote and voter ID. Register to vote and voter ID, right? Show proof of citizenship when you show up at the ballot box. That is it. That is the bill. 90% of the American people support this. More than 70% of Democrats support this. So it's a more bipartisan thing. It's literally common sense, if you ask me. You need an ID to buy a cold medicine at CVS. You need an ID to get into a R-rated movie. You need an ID to board a plane, but somehow requiring one to pick the president of the United States is where Washington decides to draw the line. Make it make sense. It does not. The House, under Speaker Mike Johnson, has passed this bill 4 separate times. Let me say that again. 4 separate times. And at some point, this is not even a legislative record anymore. This is a personality trait. The House keeps sending it over to the Senate like a kid passing a note in class, and the Senate keeps shoving it in a drawer. So Karoline Leavitt did her job. She stood at the podium and she repeated exactly what President Trump said. And the president wants the SAVE Act passed. His patience is running out. The House did its job. The Senate needs to do its job too. That's all she said. She didn't attack John Thune. She didn't threaten him. She didn't call him names. She stated a fact. Now, how did the Senate Majority Leader respond? Did he call a press conference and lay out his plan to get the votes? Did he pick up the phone and start whipping members? No, none of the above. He took a shot at Karoline Leavitt and he said, and I quote, maybe she should get on the phone and get the votes. Let me just pause right there. So Karoline Leavitt is the press secretary who will be stepping down at the end of August, will be the outside advisor to the RNC, which is the Republican National Committee, to focus on the midterms, right? But her job is to stand at the podium as a secretary, a press secretary, in which will be her former position, like I said, at the end of this month. But her job was to stand at the podium and communicate what the president wants. So counting Senate votes is your job, and it is literally on your business card. Getting 70, 60, 51 votes in the chamber that you control is the only job you have. And you're telling a woman who just had a baby and went back to work to do the job or do your job for you, that is like yelling at the waitress because you don't like the restaurant owner's menu. She didn't write the menu, John. So she is just telling you what the boss wants. And this is where it gets even worse because Karoline Leavitt was not freelancing. She was not going rogue. She was repeating President Trump's own words from the night before in that White House press briefing or conference. But Trump said his patience was running out with the Senate. We all know that our president is very transparent, very direct, to the point where you can factually cite and go back and revive what he said with receipts because he's going to say it bluntly. So don't attack the messenger, attack the person who said it, which obviously he doesn't have the galls or balls to do when it comes to John Thune, just like he doesn't have the balls to get the votes. Operating on the best interest of the American people, but I believe that the American people will speak in regards of his position being in political survival. That's all I'm saying. I don't wish for people to lose their jobs, but your job is a public official. Just putting it out there. Disclaimer. But Leavitt repeated it in regards of what our president has said with his patience running out with the Senate. So when Thune snapped at her, it was not Thune versus Leavitt, it was Thune versus Trump. And every reporter in that room understood that immediately. So now you got Republicans fighting Republicans on live television while the Democrats just sit back and watch the show. And this is where I want to zoom out and look at the bigger picture because you have a Republican trifecta. You control the House, you control the Senate, you control the White House. This was supposed to be the moment. This is like the old Miami Heat days, you know, in basketball with LeBron, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh. You got the big three. This is supposed to be championship season, and somehow the bottleneck is your own teammate. It's like ordering the pizza and the delivery guy shows up at your door, rings the bell, and then just stands there holding the pizza for months. And he doesn't hand it over. He just stands there. Meanwhile, your pizza is growing hair, mold, and all sorts of nasty stuff. So that is John Thune. He's the guy holding the pizza with hair on it, and now people don't even want the pizza anymore because he waited too long.
I laughed about it in the Oval last week. I told him, Mr. President, I don't have any tattoos, but if I did, it'd say Save America on my shoulder, okay? We passed it 3 times in the House already. We're going to pass it again. And this time we're going to try to put it on a reconciliation bill. And the reason that's so important, Maria, as you know, is it prevents the necessity of 60 votes in the Senate. The Democrats want no part of this. And remember, this is very basic stuff. We're just going to make sure you have to have proof of citizenship to register to vote, and then show an ID when you turn out at the ballot box. These are 90-10 public opinion issues, and more than 70% of Democrats want to do it, but not the Democrats in the House and Senate. And so we've got to go around them. And I told Anna Paulina Luna and a couple other colleagues, I said, it makes no sense for us to shut down our good work in the House just because Senate Democrats refuse to do the people's will. We've got a lot more to do. We've got to keep it.
Finally, we have to pass the Save America Act to defend American elections. And I have to say, Mike Johnson and Congress have done a great job, but we're having a hard time in the Senate. The Senate, what they're doing is it's just not right. Congress is going to pass it again. They passed it 3 times. They're going to pass it again. It's like the Senate is a place that you send things when you want them to die. We can't do this, and we're not going to take this any longer. We're not going to take it. You know, I'm trying to be nice, trying to be really nice. You saw we had a big victory last night in Arizona. I've had victories everywhere. But we're not going to be able to take it much longer. When they can't get past voter ID, proof of citizenship, no mail-in ballots because they're crooked as hell.
There you have it. Now, here's where it gets really interesting and where a lot of people start connecting the dots that John Thune probably wishes they would stop connecting. Reports have surfaced claiming that Senate Majority Leader John Thune has taken in roughly $1.5 million over his career and campaign contributions from industries that are connected to cheap foreign labor and illegal immigration. Now, I want to be careful here because the facts do matter. This is reported. Nobody is being convicted of anything today, and nobody's getting handcuffed. But I am going to ask a simple question that every single person watching this should be asking. For 2 years now, John Thune has told his voters that he supports the SAVE Act for 2 years. He has been saying, trust me, I am with you. And yet somehow the bill never quite makes it to the floor for a vote. It is always right around the corner. It's always coming soon, and then magically it never comes. Now, and I'm not saying the money is the reason. I'm not making that accusation, but I am saying that if my bank account had 1.5 million reasons to slow walk something, I would probably develop some pretty convenient scheduling conflicts too. You might develop a sudden case of we need to build more consensus, or now is not the right time, or let's wait until after the next thing. Coincidence? Maybe. Convenient? Absolutely convenient. And this is where the facts start to line up in a way that does not look good, because look at who benefits when the SAVE Act does not pass. Real simple. Businesses that want cheap labor. Businesses that rely on illegal immigration to keep wages low. Those same businesses donate to politicians who will keep the border open and keep the voting laws loose. And John Thune has been on the receiving end of that money for years now. And the argument from his defenders would be that he is just being careful, that he wants to make sure they do it right, that reconciliation is complicated, that the filibuster is important. And I hear that, I really do. To be fair, the filibuster has been part of a Senate tradition for a long time. There are legitimate arguments about protecting minority rights and slowing down bad legislation. I understand that perspective. But here's the problem. Democrats have already proven they will blow up the filibuster the second it benefits them. In 2022, they came within 2 votes of nuking it entirely. And they are not asking for permission next time. They are just waiting for the opportunity. So if they are going to destroy it anyway, why are Republicans still protecting it like it's the Hope Diamond? Use it now while you actually control all these branches. Pass the SAVE Act, lock in the America First agenda, lock in voter ID, lock in proof of citizenship. Because if you wait, if you hesitate, you might find yourself in a position where you no longer have the House or the Senate or the White House, and then none of this matters. And this is where I want to bring in something that a lot of people in the mainstream media don't want to talk about. Elections have consequences, and right now, while Republicans are busy fighting each other, the left is organizing because you got folks like Mayor Zohran Mamdani in New York City, the socialist who won the mayoral election, a member of the Democratic Socialists of America. This is the direction of the Democratic Party in which they are moving, and they're not moving toward the center, they're moving toward socialism. And if you are a Republican sitting on a bill that will protect election integrity while the socialists are taking power in major American cities, what exactly are you waiting for? This is not complicated. The House has done its job 4 times. The American people have spoken 90% support for their idea, and your own voters are telling you to move. So when you do not move, people are going to ask why, and the answer that keeps coming up is the one about the money. Now let's talk about what happened next, right? Because this is where John Thune really got cooked. The man posted a sweet little throwback on social media about growing up in Maduro, South Dakota. Small town values, community belonging, very wholesome Norman Rockwell type stuff. The type of post that is supposed to get likes and warm feelings from the locals. 93 likes, 2,000 comments. Let me say that again. 93 likes, 2,000 comments. Folks, that ratio is not a compliment. That ratio is a mob. That is not a comment section. That is a jury, and they have already reached the verdict. Multiple people independently, without coordinating, reached for the same 1780s founding father level betrayal comparison. Traitor. Benedict Arnold, remove him. Fire him. Demote him. These are not some random trolls. These are his own constituents. These are South Dakota Republicans who voted for him, who donated to him, who knocked on doors for him, and they are telling him to face that, to his face, I should say, that they feel betrayed. And they're letting it be known to his face. So one commentator put it perfectly that when I was looking across it, and I quote, Republicans did not work this hard to win the House, win the Senate, and win the White House just to watch their own Senate leader treated like a parking space he is saving for later. End quote. South Dakota did not send John Thune to Washington and sit on his hands. They sent him to deliver. And when he does not deliver, and when he attacks the White House press secretary instead of doing his job, and when his own voters start calling him Benedict Arnold, you have a problem that goes beyond policy. This is a trust problem. They're telling you straight to his face. And trust, once it's broken, is very hard to rebuild. Now, let's talk about the clock, because the clock is not John Thune's friend. As we know, the August recess is here. It is August, about to be the end of August. And when the Senate leaves town, it is beach photos and county fairs, and nothing gets done. Save Act just sits there collecting dust. Then September hits. Government funding deadline. President Trump is already warning flat out that there is going to be a shutdown if things don't get done. And then 2 years down the road, debt ceiling fights come back, right? President Trump even called it 1929. And family, 1929 is not a year you want your economic policy compared to. Every week that John Thune waits is a week closer to recess, right? And which most likely is the end of August. So he in recess, basically. So every week closer, right? Is closer to shutdown season. And shutdown season is when Democrats love to point fingers and blame Republicans for chaos. So the math is simple, which is why, for my assumption, I can't prove it, that it makes you wonder what Democrat is behind that's an old rhino constituent like John Thune, basically pulling the strings and puppet strings for him not to do and pass the SAVE Act. So delay helps nobody except the people who do not want the SAVE Act to pass, is my point. And we already know who those people are. They are the ones cutting the check. So where does this leave us? From my perspective, this was never really about Republicans versus Democrats. It's about Republicans versus Republicans. It's about establishment versus American first. And it's really about action. John Thune represents one lane, the let's not rock the boat lane, the let's take our time lane, the maybe we'll get to it eventually lane. We'll get to it eventually. And President Trump, Mike Johnson, and apparently most of John Thune's own comment sections represent the other lane, the we won, so let's actually govern lane. And here's what I'm teaching with all of this. Elections are not just about winning. They're about what you do after you win. Power is not the point. What you do with power is the point. And if you win control of the House, the Senate, and the White House, you cannot pass a bill that 90% of Americans support. Then you either do not know how to govern or you don't want to. And either answer is a problem, because while you are sitting on the bill that protects the integrity of American elections, the left is not sitting still. They're organizing, they're winning elections, they're putting socialists in office in major American cities. Mayor Zohran Mamdani in New York City is a real thing that happened. The Democratic Socialists of America having a sitting mayor in the largest city in the country. And if Republicans cannot get it together to pass voter ID, and proof of citizenship while they have the power to do it, they may not get another chance. And I want to leave you with this. I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'm here to give you the facts and break it down in plain English and let you decide. But I would tell you what I think. I think John Thune needs to decide whose side he is on. He is on the side of the voters who send him to Washington, or he's on the side of the $1.5 million in campaign contributions. Because right now, his actions are speaking a lot louder than his words, and his own voters have already reached their verdict. Now, before I go, let's get into the word, and I want to share a scripture that fits this situation perfectly. Proverbs chapter 28, verse 2 says, when a country is rebellious, it has many rulers, but a ruler with understanding and knowledge maintains order. Think about that for a second. When leadership is weak and when people are not doing their jobs, when the people in charge are more worried about protecting their position than protecting the country, chaos follows. That is exactly what we're seeing right now. John Thune has the title of majority leader, but he is not leading. He is managing the status quo, and a manager is not the same thing as a leader. A leader moves things forward. A leader takes risks. A leader does not need to be told by the president of the United States to do the job he was elected to do. And if you are a person of faith, this is a reminder that God calls us to be faithful stewards of whatever authority we are given. Whether you are a Senate majority leader, a business owner, a parent, or just someone trying to do the right thing at work, you have a responsibility to act with integrity and courage, not just when it's easy, but when it's hard. And for those of you who are not spiritual, my non-spiritual family, here's a life wisdom. The lesson is simple, life wisdom wise. If you have the power to do something good and you do not do it, you are part of the problem. It does not matter what excuses you make. It does not matter how you justify it to yourself. The only thing that matters is what you actually do. And John Thune can say he supports the Save Act all he wants, but until he puts it on the floor and forces the vote, his words mean nothing. And the same is true for all of us. At the end of the day, you are judged by your actions, not your intentions. So if you have the ability to do something right, do not wait. Do not make excuses. Do not let money or pressure or fear stop you. Just do it because the people who are counting on you, whether it's your family, your community, or your country, do not care about your reasons. They care about results. So let me know what you think in the comments down below. Do you think John Thune will actually bring the Save Act to a vote, or is this going to keep getting kicked down the road or kicking a can down the road? Hit the like button, share the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new. If you're already part of the family, I appreciate you for rocking with me. And for those who just watched this video, I appreciate you for watching and just rocking with me. And spread that peace, love, and positivity. Let the love supersede the hate, family. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.